Hey YouTube, I'm Ross Magas. This is not real life, and today I want to talk to you guys about Netflix's Devil May Cry show. And I guess I'm not going to bury the lead. To be honest, guys, this is not it. If you're a Devil May Cry faithful, you've been playing the games for a long time, you should probably avoid this show. But let me actually get into some things that I did enjoy about this show, because it wasn't completely a waste of time. But yeah, we'll just leave it. It wasn't there were some things about the show I could appreciate, and so the good things. First of all, the production level on this show was actually quite spectacular. It was very high quality. The animation quality itself, specifically, is what I mean, is consistently good throughout the whole show. I don't think I saw anything where it was particularly cheapy looking or just bad outright. I mean, I'm sure there were a couple scenes in there where there was some CG, to make up for some of the more dynamic shots and things like that. But that's, it's to be expected nowadays. It's just the way it is. So that's not an issue itself. I think visually speaking, the show looks quite good. Another thing that was particularly good is actually phenomenal in this case, is some of the voice acting. Well, not some of them. All the voice actors did excellent work. I want to give a particular shout out to White Rabbit, and I can't remember his name, so I'm going to look it up right now. Hoon Lee. This guy, I don't know who he is. I don't think I've ever heard him before. I've heard of him before, but dude is amazing. His voice carried a lot of magnitude and I guess maybe it's just bass. I don't know. He was able to deliver it, and he sounded authoritative when his character was speaking that way. I was very surprised to hear Kevin Conroy. I didn't expect to see him again because, rest in peace, Kevin. But of course, excellent as always. And the other thing that surprised me here is, if I'm not mistaken, Johnny Young Bosch, who plays Dante in this, is actually normally Nero. Please correct me if I'm wrong, but he's not Dante. But he plays Dante in here, and he does a good job. So, those guys were actually really the ones that I was impressed with. But everyone did a good job with the kind of character that they were told to portray. We'll leave it like that. The music on this show is pretty good. I don't necessarily think that's a plus to the show itself, because if I like Limp Bizkit normally, I don't see why I won't like it here. So it's a double-edged sword, I guess, in that sense. But that was cool. So, but it's also a negative, which I'll get to in the negative section. And honestly, the show did start out fun. I had a really great time watching it. I knew it wasn't what I was hoping for. Actually, you know what? It was more than I had hoped for initially, because I thought it was going to be absolute horrible doo-doo caca nonsense. I'm trying not to cuss on these things so my kid can watch them too. And it started out that way, and I was having a good time. I could forgive some of the weird choices they had made, because it's like, okay, this is their version, and that doesn't mean the real one doesn't exist out there, because it does. It doesn't change that at all. But it started out fun, and I was having a good time till about episode 4 or so. But anyway, I'm pretty sure I'm not the only person who said this so far, but I'm sure you've heard already. Again, this show is not it. This show's kind of bad in a lot of ways. So I'm not really going to go into some spoilers, but here are some of the, I think, really negative things. And this is going to be longer than the previous section, unfortunately. And I guess this is just another example of what I'm going to call the Netflix curse. So you'll get your show, and they'll come and they'll bring it out, and it has all this budget. So yeah, that's cool. And they just can't leave it alone, and they got to screw it up some way. That's, I guess, I'm not surprised. I mean, this is why I never watched the Netflix Cowboy Bebop. I can't. I just know I can't watch that. So I didn't. And It seems like that was the smart choice to do as far as Cowboy Bebop is concerned. But continuing from there, Netflix, I guess, weird curse. I did say it started out fun and it ended in a way I couldn't stand. I'm not surprised in a way, but it just seems so weird to do that because, again, it started out really fun. I was having a good time. And part of what made this not great is actually the characters themselves. None of the characters are the way you expect them to be. Some of them are painfully obvious what they are. Without too much spoilers, like the vice president is exactly who you think he is. Dante is not as smart as he normally is. He's a lot weaker than he should be. And he just kind of doesn't have any real development. And it just feels like all of the characters... But that's not true. It feels like Dante is someone who they were vaguely aware of what Dante was, and how people see him, but not why he is the way he is and what he is actually capable of, how he is as a person, and all the things he must have thought throughout his life because of his specific situation, But, it's a new telling. I guess this is what they want to do. Who is here is recognizable to an effect, a degree, as Dante. But again, to date myself, it's like if you photocopy an image, and back in the day, the photocopiers were not that good, and the new photocopy was, you could tell it was the same thing, but it looked horrible. Well, do that a few times, and I guess you got this Dante. Lady is the one who I think got it the worst. Lady is, I think, completely unrecognizable. Outside of that, she physically looks like Lady, They've reworked a whole lot of stuff here, and this is I don't know what to call this, but it seems like right now we live in a time where I guess nobody really knows how to write a strong female character who isn't just like an ass. They I did say I was going to try to avoid cursing, but Lady is the kind of character who, as soon as you see her on screen, you can expect the next words to be out of her mouth like "fuck off," "fuck you," "I'm tough," something like that. That's her entire character in those few words. It's almost as bad or worse, I can't decide, as what they did to Jill in Resident Evil 3 remake. I was gonna say 2. Resident Evil 3 remake. So take with that how you will. And last thing here, I don't know if it's like a spoiler, I guess, but Virgil is cringe in this show. And I don't really want to use modern parlance, but I can't think of a better way to describe it. He's just kind of cringy, and I'm like, okay. So clearly you don't know who this guy is either. The rabbit is the only character who seems cohesive and makes, I won't say makes sense, but is in the story of the show, at least fits into it. I found out later that after I'd watched it from one of my brothers that apparently this is a character from the comic books, because the rabbit motif didn't make sense with the rest of the show. And once I found that out, it's like, oh, okay, we're just cutting and picking things and moving them along and just stick them in here the way we like. So fair enough. Of all the people in the show, I think this person, John Hoon, I believe it was. I forget the name already. Excuse me. I'm combining Dante and this character. Hoon Lee. So sorry. Is probably the best performance of all the people on this show. I just wish that the character didn't lack well, for me, it wasn't a clear motivation what's going on with this character. Parts of his motivation are crystal clear and they make sense. I get it. I don't feel that they're a very Devil May Cry kind of story, but that's okay. I'm not the writer. And part of his motivation, though, makes no sense at all to me. So, like I said, like maybe there's just Netflix. Like there's a really good thing going on here, and then you gotta just kind of stick something else in there, and it doesn't work, and is what you're left with. Earlier I said that the music was a positive and a negative at the same time. And, well, the negative is that a lot of the music is metal, I guess. New metal, that kind of thing. I think they play Rage Against the Machine, Limp Bizkit, and some just, like, rock, I guess. They're all songs I personally love, and I grew up with those songs, so I like those songs. And in a way, I can see that they fit with this show, in that that's the time frame when these games first started coming out. But this isn't Devil May Cry soundtrack, so it doesn't make any sense in that capacity. But it's fine. It's cool. I like listening to the song. I was like, oh, Papa Roach is on. Cool. I like that song. But is it Devil May Cry? Not really. And what are you gonna do? I guess they have the licenses to that. But speaking of having the licenses, on the other hand, they'll have Bury the Light or Devil Trigger and other really famous Devil May Cry songs from the games. And they have like new lamer versions of the songs. And I want to be like, well, you're working with Capcom. I see their name splashed across the screen when the show starts. Like, why don't you get the real song? And speaking of that, Devil Trigger's in this show. The song used for it, it's kind of really on the nose why it's being used, but Nero is not in this show, so take it how you will. With regards to the plot, to me, I hate to be like this, but like I hear this a lot about other things online, and it felt like somebody had a show. They had written out this whole thing, and it had like demons and kind of magic in it, action, whatever. And someone was like, yo, that's cool. Hey, we have this deal with Capcom. Do you think you can work in a Capcom property into this? And now we have to smash and cut and paste things to get this show. It feels like that's what happened. If that is not what happened, then my best guess is somebody who is vaguely familiar with the Devil May Cry story, or had spoken to somebody else who was familiar, but they themselves were not familiar with it. And they kind of just picked some elements and they were like, okay, that's cool. I'm just going to grab these things and put them here, irrespective of how they actually worked in the original series. And a lot of their impacts are lost because of that. It really felt like, hey, Dante's a character. He's the main guy, so we gotta at least bring him in. But we don't really know who he is as a character. We're not gonna look too deeply into it, and we're gonna go with our own kind of way about it, because he's just like a lazy cool guy, right? I don't know, guys. Anyway, and to put it nicely, the writing for this show is very modern. It's contemporary. I'm shaking my head, so I know you can't hear that, but I'm shaking my head. And I'm sure this is the kind of writing that has crippled a lot of famous IP and other things across movies, games. You know the drill. I don't think I need to get too deeply into that. The one thing I guess I will say about that is that there are a lot of insert current political message into this thing, and Devil May Cry's never really been about that. I mean, it's not that kind of thing itself has a problem. It's just that you got to know the material itself, and Is that what that material strove for? So, example, and please don't do this, Netflix. I do not want to see you ruin Metal Gear, but Metal Gear has a lot of political messaging in it that was contemporary to the time and made sense. Also, because Hideo Kojima is a genius, he can execute that masterfully. So, it's not that the political messaging itself is bad. It's that maybe you don't know how to do it. I mean, I'm not a writer. I'm sure it's difficult, but this is not it. There's a very famous clip I've been seeing of Asmongold reacting to a scene I believe is actually in the first episode, and that his takeaway is that one of the characters is kind of just based on him. And this is at least the second time I've seen something like this in a major publication, I guess you want to say, like a video game, a movie, cartoon, animated series, where the show or game will hit you with like super overt politics, and they're like kind of signaling to you, I guess, where they stand on certain things. And then they'll bring another character who we're supposed to laugh at, and look at this dumb guy. You know, he's saying something so ridiculous, and I don't know if it's a lack of awareness or it's like a lack of it's just like coincidence. Like it's so fascinating to me that this can happen. But like you'll have some like overtly political message that doesn't make sense or to be included in this material, and then we'll have a character, in this case some radio DJ who is missing a tooth, and he's supposed to say something wild, and we're supposed to laugh at him for being stupid, when that person ends up saying to you what's going to happen the entire freaking show. And they're true, 100% accurate. And the only other time I've seen this was in Spider-Man.
But it's weird that it happened twice, right?
And I mean Spider-Man for PS4. And they make fun of J. Jonah Jameson to pretend he's like some kind of Alex Jones type guy, and turns out he was right. Kind of weird, like mixed messaging. So if you're one side or the other, it's hard to tell, I guess. But I mean, it's not really, but it just seems like that kind of slips through their cracks, and it's kind of weird. But and really, since I'm not gonna go into the super details about the show, like episode by episode, that kind of thing, really, like I think the best outcome that can happen from this show is that if you have a cursory interest in Devil May Cry, and you enjoy this, hey, you know, that's awesome. I'm glad for you. And I mean that like completely unironically. I'm happy you like it. Then why don't you give the games a chance and see what the rest of us have been loving since, I guess, the early 2000s, like, you know? And I think you'll really fall in love with the original story and the original characters. This is a easy, no barrier entry method, because Devil May Cry is, you know, is famously a difficult game to play. It's not that difficult if you just play it to get through it, not to play it to be like, you know, triple S rank. That's a whole different level of difficulty. But that's what I think is the best outcome for all of us here, is that a lot of people will see this. They'll see Dante. They'll be like, oh yeah, this guy's pretty cool looking. I wonder where this game is from. What's this character like? What's his original story? Because, you know, it's just a Netflix show. And I'm hoping there'll be a lot more Devil May Cry fans as a result of this, because they'll start seeing this, then they'll go back and find the history, so to speak, and then we'll be there to show them like, hey, you know what, this part was this is what this was referencing, but you can see it's a little bit different in this game, you know. So just play them. 2 is still the bad one, but the rest of them are really good. If you love Devil May Cry, you're a triple S easy in your sleep kind of player, you know the lore in and out, backwards and forwards, do not watch this. You'll just get mad. You'll hate yourself for watching it, and you'll hate people for making it. So stay away from it. So in conclusion, it's not as horrible as it could be, but it's not great either. And, you know yourself. If you hate modern writing, you've been a fan of the games, like I just said, just steer clear completely. from this show. If not, give it a chance. You might find a new game series for you to fall in love with. Well, either way, I'm Ross Magas. This is Not Real Life. And thanks for sticking out to listen to my review on the Devil May Cry Netflix show. And I'll see you guys in the next one.